Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /Entitled People, where people truly think they can do what they want, when they want, and they're above everyone else. And in today's episode, it's another one filled with nightmare Karen bosses, guys. And one OP tells a story about the time this nasty manager blackmailed them to work for free for years, and the story's wild. So sit back, relax, and seriously, try not to shake your heads too hard in this one. To begin, I graduated high school in 1989. Last week, I was contacted via Facebook by a woman I went to high school with and haven't seen or spoken to since. Another former classmate of ours had told her that I was a writer, and she wanted to find out if I wrote biographies. So after some chatting, she told me that she wanted me to write a book about her life story. I'll save you the details, but she got pregnant right out of high school to a drug dealer, and for 20 years, she was in and out of jail, addicted to various substances, and generally destroyed her life. She's since gotten out of that slump, and she's built a successful business, and she's doing a lot better now, which I was happy to hear. It's a rags to riches story that she wanted to make into book form. She told me that if I were to take on that position, I would be working for her. She'd be my boss and we'd work together. I explained to her that this will be a big project with a lot of research, and it could take a while, a couple of years even. When she asked if I could do it any faster, I told her if she paid me a premium, I could put other jobs on hold. I could make this my priority and finish it sooner. At the mention of money, she gets angry at me. She told me that she can't pay me, but I would get a generous share of the profits. Now, I know that most books don't make money, or they make very little, and I told her I couldn't afford to work for free for 2 years on a project with no way of knowing that I would ever see a dime from it. Cue the angry talk, how she thought I would be willing to help out an old friend and classmate, and how this book was going to be huge and I was going to miss out on it, and why don't I believe in her? I suggested that we spend a few hours writing a treatment so she could use to either get an agent or deal with a publisher. Once she had one of those in place, so I knew the project had a future, I would be more open to doing this on a royalty-only basis. And her response was, I figured you'd be able to get it published and sell the movie rights. In short, she thought I'd be willing to work for free for her, to write the book, and then I'd get a publishing deal for the book and then sell the movie rights for millions of dollars, and that I would do all of this for a generous 4% of the profit, and no idea where she got that ridiculous number. When I told her that I can't just afford to work for free, she got pissed and she starts bashing me on Facebook. She literally wrote long posts about me, painting me as an a-hole who won't help an old friend out. When I replied to her post explaining the truth, people jumped on her. That resulted in her making one long post explaining how it was people like me who were unwilling to help her, that don't believe in her, that caused her to be a drug addict and a criminal for 20 years in the first place, and how she hopes I can sleep at night when she relapses over this. A few hours later, after being called an idiot by several people, she deleted her Facebook account. So I guess not working for free causes people to become drug addicts and criminals who can't stay out of jail. I never knew I had so much power. Gotta love the delusional entitled Karens, hey? And it's funny how she can't be bothered to write for herself for free, but somehow expects a person that she hasn't seen for decades to do it for free. That said, gotta give her props. Movie rights, like someone is super confident. And this person says, "Hi, Touchstone Pictures. I'd like to sell you the movie rights for a blockbuster." So picture this, a young girl finishes school, gets pregnant to a drug dealer who ultimately is sentenced to 20 years. She then becomes an addict, and she's in and out of jail, but she's now turned her life around. That's her story. So how much you gonna give me? Oh, what's that you say? There's literally thousands of stories like that, and you could do a movie exactly like it for free using a fictional character? Again, some people be so delusional, it's adorable. So I worked at a bar and grill in my area for 4 long, grueling years. I've got stories about coworkers, but most of them were just jokes or harmless nonsense. My manager, however, is a completely different story. At first, he was just another guy I worked with. But pretty quickly, he starts going out of his way to push my buttons. He would make little comments, random digs, stuff he knew would irritate me. One night, I was stacking dishes and I accidentally cracked a plate. And I'll admit, I did put too much force into it, but it was an accident. He immediately accused me of doing it on purpose. I wouldn't listen, didn't care. He then followed me and yelled at me for 10 straight minutes until I finally told him to shut up. And his response is, "I'm your manager, I can say what I want." Anytime he gave me advice on how to do something differently, and I said I preferred my way, he would get in my face screaming, "Who's worked in the restaurant business for 20 years, you or me? I think I know how to do this better than you." But the breaking point was a few weeks ago. It was a Wednesday night, and I wasn't even supposed to work, but I was called in to cover a shift. I was 5 minutes late. 5 minutes, and the guy lost it. He tried to make me mop the entire kitchen and clean the toilets as punishment. Sick and tired of it, I said, "That's not in my job description." He then fires back and screams, "Who do you think writes your job description, idiot?" I just responded with, "I don't know, the store owner." When I didn't want to mop or clean, he kept pestering me and saying, "Well, you can either do push-ups or mop and clean." I just kept saying no, and then he changed it to mop and sweep because of my insubordination. His exact words were, "Well, for your insubordination, you have to mop and sweep." Eventually, after him not letting it go for 10 minutes, just to shut him up, I actually got down on the kitchen as an employee to do 10 push-ups as an employee. That same night, he also went after my sister. She was there to pick me up, and she knew about how he treats staff, and she took a quick video of him yelling at us. That's it. No disruption, no confrontation, nothing, and the guy exploded. He's yelling, swearing, and told her to get out. She just stood her ground, and she said she wasn't leaving until she knew I was safely with her, and that's when he threatened police. When we get home, she admitted that she was genuinely worried about me working under someone like that. And here's where things get interesting. The video she took, well, it caught him yelling, clear as day. His tone, his words, the way he was talking to her and me. My sister, having enough of him, posted it on Instagram, and she tagged my restaurant as we have a social media page, and it made its way to the owner. I quit the next day. I was done. A week later, I get a call from one of my old coworkers. Apparently, the owner pulled him into a meeting and asked if this kind of behavior was normal. He told him everything, and multiple employees backed it up. Similar stories, same intimidation, same power trips. The guy was fired immediately. No warning, no dramatic send-off, just gone. Listen, OP's sister is the MVP in this one. Like, way to frickin' go and stand up for workers who are too scared to speak up for themselves. Like, power tripping and yelling is one thing, but forcing your employees to do push-ups in the kitchen for disobeying you, some people are truly the scum of the earth. And who else is surprised it took that long for him to get canned? So this takes place 19 years ago when I worked for State Street Bank for one of the worst human beings ever, Paula. Real places, real names, I don't care. If you live in Boston and you're looking to work at this place, skip it. It's a horrible place to work. Anyways, on to the story. I just started working for Paula. The team was a mini project team tackling complex financial operation problems with high SVP visibility. That's how it was sold to me. In reality, it was a mushroom farm, with Paula keeping you in the dark and feeding you crap. All I did was compile reports and gather data from people who were terrified of my team. Needless to say, I was bait and switched, and I was looking to get out shortly after I got there. She had a habit of always criticizing your work to hell with the stupidest things. One of the reports I was responsible for was a weekly update on certain oil warrants out of Nigeria. To those that don't know, a warrant's an agreement to buy a commodity at a specific price, regardless of what the current value is. The reason being, there was an option to buy at $30 per barrel when prices peaked at $90 per barrel. We had no idea if the holder knew about this or not, but we had to monitor and report because liability and loss would have been massive. Anywho, week after week after week, Paula would review and rip me a new a-hole over the format verbiage and every stupid thing not related to the actual numbers being right. It was total ticky-tack stuff. One day, I was going through the network files, and I stumbled across an old folder for a similar project. It was Paula's handiwork before they gave her a team to manage. So I decided to use her format for everything, even changing the report structure to look just like hers and using her cover letter language. I brought it to her office to review and sign off, and she absolutely lost her lid. She asked what happened to the old format. I just told her that since she didn't seem to like what I'd been doing, I thought it was best to change it around. She then screams and says this was way worse than before, probably the worst I've ever submitted to her. She just went on and on for what seemed like forever. I just looked at her and I didn't interrupt with a blank look. Her last question to me was, what was I thinking when I made these changes? Was I dumb? That's when I told her that I used the formatting and language she used when she was doing a similar report a few years back. That I found the folder online and I used her past work verbatim, just with the numbers and the relevant information changed. I gave her printouts of her reports and letters to compare. She just looked at me and she had this dumbstruck look on her face. I asked if this was bad, should I just go back to my old format then? She just signed off on the reports and she said send them as is. I just wanted to confirm that they were fine to send because less than a minute ago, she said it was basically unreadable and stupid what I did. She said they were fine as is and we didn't have time to redo them. So I sent them out. Now, I was smart enough to find and save all of her old work to use. I noticed that she went through and she deleted and moved the older folders. This cat and mouse game went on for the remainder of my time there. I would use her templates and past work and wait for her to tear it apart. Then, upon finding out it was her work, she would backtrack and give me a pass. After a few more times, she eventually figured out that I grabbed all of them. She asked, and I told her I created standard operating procedures using all of her past work, and I'd saved it locally. It seemed like a logical thing to do. I was able to quit a few months later. F you, Paula. Seriously, there is no winning with bosses like this who are out to get you. Oh, your work is so stupid. You are so dumb. Oh wait, that's my work and you used my old format? Well, I approve of that. And Obi does come back to add why Paula is so crappy. They say we weren't allowed to leave until after she left, and she didn't leave until her boss left. We're talking 7 to 8 every effing day. She also got pissed when I took a week off when my child was born. She kept us there during a snowstorm, and she got mad when I wanted to take a day off to do errands for my daughter's first birthday. She made me burn vacation time to go to my brother-in-law's wake and funeral. She looked into stopping me from using bereavement time for my sister-in-law's wake and funeral 7 months later. But then, she tried to play it off that she was trying to get me bereavement time. The HR rep who I knew told me this. She got annoyed when I talked about my family stuff and having fun with my wife because she's divorced and she's unable to have a relationship and her ex-husband moved on and got remarried. She got mad when I didn't eat at my desk because I went to the cafeteria to get the F away from her. On my last day there, I was just gonna leave and not say anything. She told me to wait for her so she could say goodbye. She stayed on the phone for 45 minutes out of spite just to keep me there. So when she finally came out, she went to shake my hand and I refused. In front of everyone, I told her to her face that she's probably the worst human being I've ever encountered, and definitely the worst boss and leader. I then went on to say that I was glad she was divorced and that she's gonna die alone. Her son will most likely marry a woman just like her, and she'll steal him from her. I also told her that there was a reason why her husband was able to move on and she couldn't. I also crapped all over her corporate record, saying that she was just a snitch, and that none of the senior VPs liked or respected her, and her whole career is based on effing people over. I then left, and I never spoke to her again. I did bump into her at industry events, and she avoided me like the plague. I also badmouthed her in industry circles, where I knew it would get back at her. Again, F you, Paula. So this is kind of a long story, but I'm 19 years old, and I want to leave my job and go find a new one I can do part-time so I can finish school. My boss is okay with me leaving, but the problem is he won't be able to support me anymore if I do, which means I'll lose everything I own, and now I really don't know where to turn. Here's the story. To start, I started here when I was 16 years old. A guy that I knew got a big suite in a hotel, which is one of the nicest ones in Dallas. We had a huge party here, we're drinking, and it got out of control. People threw up in the room, caused a lot of damage in the hotel, and they stole a bunch of things. The next morning, I woke up to a manager and security yelling at me. I found out my friends were all gone, but they left me sleeping. The manager took me to his office, and I was crying and begging him not to call police. That's when he said that I could start coming in after school and helping them clean rooms and do dishes in the kitchen to work off the money from all the damage, and he wouldn't call the police. I agreed, and after a few weeks, I told him I couldn't anymore, because my parents wouldn't drive me since I wasn't bringing home any money. They said he was taking advantage of me. I didn't want to tell my parents that I was working to pay off the debt, and I didn't listen because, well, they didn't know the full story. Because of that, my boss bought me a used bike to use, and he said he wanted me every day there until the damage was all paid, plus the bike. Over the next couple of months, he got increasingly demanding, and every time I asked how much more work I had to do, he always said he would tell me when I'm finished, and if I don't want to work, he'll just call the police and have me thrown in jail. So I just kept working and doing what he said. He made me work 4 to 12 every night, and it was affecting my school. After high school, I didn't go to college. When he found that out, he said I had to be here pretty much all day if I'm not going to be in school. He also gave me an option of moving into a nice home. My boss was house sitting for a family that lives in India, and it has been great, except a couple of months per year I have to move out because they're coming home. They don't know I live there the rest of the time. It's not all bad because I've lived comfortably. He lets me take home food from the hotel, and the house I live in is quite nice. I've told him several times that I want to be paid, but he always says I owe him and he won't tell me how much the damage was or how much I've worked off. I know the statute of limitations is 3 years, and after that, he can't press charges against me. So that said, yesterday was 3 years exactly, and I told him I know he can't have me arrested anymore and that I want to quit. He said it's okay, but he bought my bike, all the essentials I needed since I was 16, and he's saying if I don't work for him anymore, I have to move out of the home I'm living in and give back all the things he bought for me to use during my job. He's gotten me a lot of things over the years, and I have no money. There's no way I can leave the job. Whenever I needed something, I just asked him, and if I'm doing well at work, he'll buy it for me. So I don't even know where to start to rebuild my life after this place. What a post that was, guys. And yeah, OP shared this post asking for help. And there are a few updates to this post, but seriously, it never should have gotten to this point at all. Like, first off, OP wasn't liable for damage to the room or the actions of their friends, because it's on the person who booked the room. And secondly, like, how much damage could have been done? It sounds like the guy had OP working at least 40 hours a week for 3 effing years, guys, and expected OP to be there longer. Like, it sucks so much that this guy took advantage of OP, scaring OP to essentially become this guy's slave, and it's so messed up. But yeah, OP does come back with updates though, guys, and it gets pretty wild. Yesterday, I googled the top employment law firms in my area, and I sent off some emails. I also got a call from a lawyer saying he wanted to meet with me first thing in the morning. My mind was racing all night. I must have printed out 50 pages of emails I have with him over the past 3 years, and also made notes from some of his voicemails. After about 5 minutes of talking to me this morning, he asked if it would be okay for some of the other lawyers he works with to join us, and I spent about 2 hours answering their questions and talking them through everything. The moment this all sank in for me of how big of a deal this was when I saw one of the lawyers tear up a couple of times while I was talking. Honestly, it never felt like such a big deal to me before, but now I'm seeing it from a whole new light. In the end, they said that they'll take my case 100%, and I won't have to pay them anything up front. They just need a few days to do some research before we meet again and talk about the details, which is going to happen Friday. And like a bunch of you said, they told me it's a lot more than just the pay issue, and there's a lot of parts they need to explore about lost wages and also criminal charges that he'll face. But they need to talk about a strategy first. They also said that since I'm over 18 now, that my parents don't need to know anything or be involved in any way. When we were finishing, the main lawyer I was talking to asked what I was doing the rest of the day. I told him I thought I was gonna play it cool until we actually sue him, and I would go to work after this. That's when he said that I'm never going to work there again, and I shouldn't answer any calls or messages from them ever again. So I've been home now for a couple of hours, just packing, and that's when I got this email from their office. The email said, "It was a pleasure meeting you this morning. So-and-so asked me to get in touch to share details of the accommodations we'd like to provide, as well as some logistical information in advance of your Friday meeting. We've also made a 30-day reservation for you at so-and-so place, which is closer to our offices and this place. I've attached a copy of your reservation confirmation, and please note it's been paid in full. Someone from our office will be in touch around 4 this afternoon to check in on how things are going and coordinate with you on getting your things out of the house and into the hotel. She'll also provide you with some spending money for any immediate essentials and get you set up with an Uber account to make transportation to our offices a little easier next time. Although we hope to represent you in these matters, we're providing these accommodations at no cost and with no obligation on your part. This is intended to help bring a more immediate stability to your living situation, so you can focus on your next steps in life. Thank you again for getting in touch with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon." Now, I'm assuming if they're willing to do all of this for me and spend all of this money, that they think they're gonna make a lot of money from this, which is probably why I'm gonna come out well. So I'm beyond thrilled with how this is turning out so far, and I 100% want to work with them. I still have a ton of pack, and I just wasted an hour on the internet, but I'm gonna get back to it now. Thank you so much for pointing me in the right direction. Update number 2. So I posted here a couple of years ago when I was stuck working for someone who threatened to have me arrested over some room damage my friends caused. A lot has changed since then, and the advice I got from all of you has been such a big part of it. And I've thought about this frequently, and I want to come back and write something to update you. The firm that I hired was the best thing I could have hoped for. They got me out from under his thumb immediately, and they helped me get back on my own feet without having to be under my boss or my parents or anyone else. I basically lived in their offices for a few months when this started, since we were going through a ton of emails and voice messages and talking about the context behind them all. It was so emotionally draining, but their team was very supportive and helped me get through the hard times. When it was all laid out in front of me, the guilt over what I did to my life really took hold. How could I be so stupid? It was so obvious what he was doing. Simple math said that none of this made sense, but I just didn't see it. I think part of it was because of my parents and not wanting to listen to them so much that I decided they had to be wrong when they tried to get me to stop. My lawyers contacted my boss and the hotel chain's executives and also the police. They said there were also some issues that made it a federal crime. None of that registered with me how serious this was. But once that happened and I thought things were going to be okay, he came to the hotel I was staying at. And yes, he actually followed me from my lawyer's office one day. And that's how he found out where I was staying. He came to the door yelling at me how he gave me everything and he did everything for me, and that this is gonna ruin him and his family. He even showed me pictures of his kids, who he then said would starve without him to put food on the table. He was telling me that I blew this all out of proportion and that my lawyers were going to bankrupt his family and put him in prison for life. I texted my lawyer to ask what I should do, and they came immediately with police and they arrested him and got me a restraining order. A few days later, my mom and lawyer came over while I was taking a nap, and they woke me up and told me that the man died from self-inflicted wounds. I've never felt as bad as I did at that moment. It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone, just a sick feeling in my stomach and my whole body felt numb. I felt like it was a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from. I had a mental breakdown and I spent 2 months in the hospital thinking about all the things he said to me about his family and how I was overblowing this, and it made me question everything again. My lawyer said they would handle as much of this as they can without me, and they would just come to me when they had something important they needed input for. My parents also came back in the picture and they were very supportive and they were helping more than I ever expected. The most apologetic person was someone from the hotel chain. They said it was a privately owned and managed hotel, so my boss didn't even work for them, but still, they wanted to make sure everything was okay. In the first post comments, you guys were saying that I should be owed at least $30,000. Well, the hotel chain itself paid me more than that for just agreeing that they weren't responsible for what he did. Lawyers said it was a generous offer that they didn't even have to make, and that the person I talked to felt genuinely sick over my situation and they wanted to do the right thing. My lawyer told me to take it, and there was a lot more coming from the franchisee, who actually owns dozens of hotels, but not all from this chain. To keep things short, it was a big settlement. My lawyers got a third of it, and they said it's one of the biggest any of them has ever seen for this kind of case, but they said it was fully warranted. I have enough to live on for a very long time, and I can also finish my education in hotel management, and I'll even have enough left over to start a hotel if I want to do that. It's been such a blessing, so that's my story. I'm going to school right now, as I've said, and I'm trying to build a future. I still have nightmares sometimes about my old boss and just remembering him yelling at me that day at the hotel, and then hearing that he died. I remember all the times he was nice to me and gave me things and did things for me. Sometimes I wonder, even as happy as I am now, if it was worthwhile to know that he's gone and his family's suffering and they have nothing. My therapist says that sometimes the right thing can be hard and hurts, but that I did everything right, so that does help me feel a lot better. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm just glad Opie's living life now and is slowly healing from that. But like I've said, guys, what a wild situation to be in, and in my opinion, an unnecessary one. Like 3 years of being blackmailed into working for free. Ridiculous. Like, I felt if Opie just let the guy call the cops, everything would have been solved in a fraction of the time. But at the same time, I do understand how being a 16-year-old, you would freak out over something like this. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where once again, bad bosses are getting taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.